Alright, welcome to Ground Control. I have a foam cutting tool here from Werks, Logan Graphics, and this is a straight and bevel cutter. Now, I'm left-handed, so I want to be able to see, from the right-hand side where my blade is located on the line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, we're going to pretend this is a wing. I've already got my line drawn, and then this line over here is for the control surface. I've been wanting to try out some of these foam work tools for a long time for my scratch build aircraft. I'm always looking for a way to improve my process, and if I can get straighter, more vertical straight cuts. And then one of the problems I always have is when I'm cutting 45-degree bevels for my control surfaces, I cannot cut a freehand 45-degree bevel to save my life. So what I end up doing is cutting a straight line, then scoring the paper about 5 millimeters back, pulling the paper off, and then using a sanding block to get that 45-degree bevel. Because if I try to cut it freehand, it's going to be wavy back and forth and ends up being more work for me than if I just cut it straight, remove 5 millimeters back of the paper, and then sand it. But that's very time consuming, and it's also pretty messy. So I'm always looking for a way to do things more accurate and also save me time. So this tool is courtesy of Werks. They sent me one of their deluxe kits along with this nice aluminum cutting guide. So I am going to make my straight cut first on the wing, and then I'm going to make my cut on my control surface, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to set this tool for a 45 millimeter bevel cut, and then see how well that works and see if it's going to save me some time. Now, I would like to use the guide to do this, but if I do, I'm going to have to put it on the right hand side, and you guys are not going to be able to see what I'm doing. So I am going to forego the guide. I'm just going to do it freehand and make it as straight as I can. If I was doing this and wasn't filming it, then I would definitely use the guide to make sure that it's completely straight. So anyway, I've got my depth on my blade set for about 6 millimeters because the thumb is about 5 millimeters thickness with the paper on the top and the bottom. Always make sure that you have a spare piece of foam underneath it when you're cutting so that you don't dull your blade. And then on the back side, I also have this little block here of scrap foam, because I'm going to be starting at this end and pulling it back, and I want something to be able to support this block when I get to the end of the foam. Because as you can see, the blade is angled when you go in there, so you're going to have to go a little bit past it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and perform my first cut. I've never used this tool before, so this is my first time, and I will try to keep it as straight as I can without the guide, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And I wanted something like this that would allow me to keep my cut completely vertical. Okay, so there we are. I have a nice 90-degree cut. I have a hard time doing that freehand. I can cut right along the line that I need to freehand, but the problem is when I'm putting pressure down on the blade, I kind of wander back and forth with the blade, so I don't get it completely vertical. And with that tool, it cut right through it, and it cut it completely vertical. Okay, so now let me get this big piece of foam out of my way. Alright, and now I'm going to make the cut on my pretend control surface here that's going to attach to my wing. I'm going to put my scrap piece of foam on the back side of it again. Let me get my guide out of the way. Okay, so now I'm going to make a freehand straight cut on the control surface. I will provide a link to this tool in the show notes, and right now I can tell that this is in fact probably going to save me some significant time. Okay, so now I have my wing, my control surface cut. I'm going to flip my control surface over because now what I'm going to do is make the 45-degree cut on it. In order to do that, they've just got little thumb knobs on here that hold the block in place and hold the blade in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up. I'm going to flip this entire block around And I'll also provide a link in the show notes to their demonstration of this tool, because they're probably better than I am at demonstrating it. Okay, so now I flip this over. I want the bevel to be on this back side right here. So now what I'm going to do, as you can see, I have a 45-degree cut angle right here on the block. See, the block now is at a 45-degree angle. Now, like I said, if I was doing this for real, I would be using that guide. But because I want to demonstrate this, I'm just going to be eyeballing it, and I'm going to be doing it freehand. So, and I should have changed the depth. I need to do that. I should have changed the depth on my blade a little bit, because now that it's angled, it needs to be a little bit further out. Okay, so let's try this again. And like I said, I'm doing this freehand just so you can see it. Okay, there's my scrap piece of foam. Okay, so you can see this looks more like one of my freehand jobs. But as you can see on this area over here where I didn't wander with it because I didn't have the guide, I've got a complete 45-degree angle on there. You see that? Complete 45-degree angle. I'm not going to have to do any sanding if I use my guide. I'm not going to have to use any sanding. And if I put this control surface on this wing, you can see that I have full motion without the top of it pulling away. And I didn't have to do any sanding. So I am getting ready to do another build of another airframe here the next week or two, and I am definitely going to be using this tool when I build my next park jet to see how much time it saves me and see how much more accurate the cuts are. But I can tell you, just from doing this freehand with that tool, this is going to be a huge time saver. So take a look at the show notes if you're interested in a tool like this, and they have several tools that come in their kit. So every week or two, I'm going to try and do a review and tutorial on another one of their tools. Oh, and another thing is it has this little rubberized cap on the back side of it, and that's where the blades are kept. So I really think that this is going to prove to be a huge time saver for me, and also allow me to get much more accurate cuts, especially on my control surfaces. So when I'm cutting out my control surfaces, when I'm cutting out my wing plate with the straight lines, that's going to enable me to get my edges completely vertical. And then another thing that I'm going to try with this tool, I won't have time to demonstrate it now, but the other thing that I do when I cut out my wings is I put a 45-degree bevel on the top and a 45-degree bevel on the bottom, so that I have a nice pointed edge that the air will flow over. So what I'm going to try to do with this tool as well, and I will practice with that and then demonstrate it, is I want to set the depth of the blade to cut about halfway through the foam. And then I want to put a 45-degree bevel on the top of it, flip it over, put a 45-degree bevel on the back side of it, and then I should have a nice 45-degree taper on the leading edge of my wing. And that's going to be a huge time saver as well, because I used to have to do all of that with the sanding block. The other thing that I'm going to try, because I also like to remove the first 5 millimeters of paper from all the outside edges of the foam, is being able to set this depth to about 0.5 millimeter, run a line, score through the paper, pull the paper off, turn it, score it again, pull the paper off, and I think that will also be a huge time saver. So thanks for watching. Please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our Patreon site. We have a lot of free content there as well. Don't forget, I'll have a link to this tool in the show notes, and you'll be seeing a lot more out of this tool, I'm sure, in future build sessions. So see you guys in the air.